Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, as you guys can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about poetry. I've been dying to make a video about poetry, and I've also included segments of talking about poetry in my previous videos, but in one of them, literally the entire time I was talking about poetry, it cut. It's not going to be an extremely long video. I've been feeling extremely demotivated. I've been going through a lot mentally, so I guess this is like the highlight of my day. Yeah, like I'm excited to talk about poetry because I've been writing poetry for about 5 to 6 years now. I really, obviously, we all do school projects, poetry, all that, but I really started like taking poetry like really seriously, trying to really get better and make it something for my life when I was in grade 8. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, first, second year. So it's been about 7 years I've been writing poetry, and I've loved it, and it's been amazing for me. I've also gone through a lot of stages of poetry and learning myself and learning my style. I'm still trying to figure out my style and just things. I'm gonna read to you guys some of the recent poems I've written and why I wrote them and what I was talking about. But honestly, it's been great. It's been a journey. Um, when I first started poetry, I remember that the reason why I started poetry was because of all the anger I was feeling, and I wrote the poem because I wanted to have a way to express myself, because I felt like nobody was listening, and I didn't necessarily want to journal because I had gone through journaling and my privacy was invaded, and I didn't want to have to go through that again. So I was like, you know what? I have to find a really subtle but obvious way to express my feelings without people having to go into my privacy for that. And what is a better way? Poetry. So that's also why I started poetry. My poetry, if I look back at it, at the first poems I wrote were really violent. I don't know if violent is the word, but they were really intense, and they were really intense. They were bold. They were very they were the opposite of precise. It wasn't smooth. It was just writing for the sake of writing. Um, but obviously that's what helps me get better. There's one poem that I'm really trying to find because I really want to read it to you guys. And I can't find it. I'm looking at my recent poetry. I also have an inspiration of one day um, publishing a book, a poetry book, and I also want to publish a story. I'm writing a story. I have a separate story that I'm writing, and then I have like my poetry collection of things that I've written like all these years. Um, yeah, like it's been. I'm really trying to find that poem. I'm really trying to find that poem. I really want to read it to you guys, and I just can't. I just can't find it. I don't know why. Okay, so I can't find the poem, so I'm gonna find another poem to write. And honestly, in this past year, I've been really struggling with writing poetry. I feel like I've hit writer's block, but not like a casual writer's block. I haven't written in 2 weeks. Like I haven't written in like months type of writer's block. Like it was really bad, and I was going through a really hard time in my life where I was constantly stressed. So I was losing weight, hormones shutting down my body. It was just the worst time of my life, and I was injured on top of it. So my body was literally in a constant panic stress mode from like May to like August, so like all summer. And yeah, poetry was like the least of my worries, so I kind of bent that and shifted that to the left. And I tried to restart poetry in September. I bended it again, and then I really restarted it. I would say around November, December. Left it a bit again, and I've been trying to keep myself consistent and even write a little bit, because for me it's like even if I don't write something that I feel like is good enough, I will still just like erase it or let it go and be like, okay, it doesn't count as me writing poetry, but that's the part of poetry and that's the part of writing. Being able, I really can't find the poem, so I'll read to you guys the most recent poetries I've written. But the poetry I was looking for, it's a poem that I wrote about the fact that women are in this system where they're constantly being called names, they're being body shamed, they're being objectified, they're being sexualized. And when they try to speak up about it, they get shut down and they're desensitized. They're basically told that they're doing too much, they're over dramatic, that they're overreacting, that they should cry about it. And it's kind of like in a system where they're kind of like chained to these words that are associated with them. And I was basically in the poem, I was basically talking about how like it comes from providers, it comes from fathers, it comes from brothers, it comes from other women, it comes from sisters, it comes from other people who are supposed to build a definition of what it is to be a woman and what it is to be a confident and proud woman. But it's these people who are actually ruining that world for these women who grow up and end up living with these definitions in their head and all these insecurities. So that's basically what I was writing about, and it was a poem that really touched me because I was going through a lot with, sometimes being slut shamed and body shamed and all these things and being called these words. It really sticks to you. Like sometimes you really feel like, you know what, like this won't affect me long term, but long term it does affect you. You see yourself and you're like, am I really what these people are calling me? And I cannot find this poem. I'm gonna find this poem. I'm gonna stop this video and I'm gonna come back. I really, really want to read this poem. Okay, guys, so after a long search, I found the poem, and there's two versions of that poem that I wrote. I'm gonna read to you guys one of the versions. The one version that I prefer to write is the first version of the poem I wrote. And the reason why I wrote a second version is because I felt like the first one was not good enough, and it was kind of like too forward. It was too forward, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna write another version that is more conservative and that is, a little bit more tucked away. But I was like, you know what, I think that by doing that, by writing a more conservative version, I'm kind of like taking away that rawness and that meaning from the poem. So I'm just gonna read it. We normalize the acceptance within ourselves of all of this hate. We let the negativity seep into our skins, aging it, making it break and separate. We normalize degrading, humiliating, calling our women names, enabling the perpetration of hate from our men and other women. We let the words hold them hostage, suffocate our women in chains. From one to the other, from a man, a brother, a friend, a father, a sister, a lover, a woman, a provider. We let the ones who are supposed to teach, protect, conceive a perception of our worlds. We let those words be sharpened and penetrate the depths of our bodies, destroy the parts and pieces of our little souls. We now look at the same women, telling them to be calm, trying to desensitize. We look at them without pity, trying to muffle their cries. We try to fill their innocent worlds with lies, slowly shaping it, letting it become their truths. So like I explained, it's basically a poem where, we call women names, we hold them hostage, we hold them with these chains, and then we basically turn around and tell these same women, you're doing too much, you're overreacting, just be okay. And it's usually people who are really important to these women, like these women who were once girls, who had these role models, these fathers, these mothers, these sisters, these people who were role models to them, just perpetrate this hate and all these negative and degrading words. These girls become women and grow, and that becomes their truth, that becomes their definition. So that's what the poem is about, and that's really the raw version. I rewrote it about 2-3 times, but that was really the version that stuck with me. That was the good version that I liked. Okay, so there's other poems that I wrote recently that I also wanted to read. And honestly, when I feel like sometimes I really need a big event to go in my life. Sometimes maybe it's a good hangout with a friend, or it's something that I'm going through that really inspires me to get back into writing. Sometimes it's these things that really shakes me awake and makes me, gives me that inspiration, gives me that fire to start writing again. And that's how it's been recently. In the past week, I've just felt inspired. I feel like I'm finding myself a little bit more. And I've looked at some of the greater poets. I've looked at some of their poetry, and I did realize that a lot of them don't use the words to describe what they're trying to describe. They're more so trying to have you work with your imagination. For example, in that poem, you guys can see I'm using intense words like destroy, hostage, chains, all these words, but some poems will write and they will avoid all of these big intense words, and they will kind of lead you to their imagination. And that's the style that I've also been trying to navigate a little bit more. It's been a little bit hard for me because my poems are really intense. I've definitely toned down the intensity compared to before, but yeah, it's a style that I've definitely been doing. I want to read a poem for that. that I've been exploring this style. It's been a bit hard for me because I feel like my poems are a bit like empty and dead, but you really have to work with that style. And if you can really, if I feel like for me, if I can really write a poem and really have a meaning without using the word to describe the meaning, it's gonna be great. So this is the poem. It's a word, a simple command, one that pushes through the thick parts of my body, and when it lands, it does so softly. The word undresses me, stripping me of all my decency. It lands me soft blows, felt at the edge of my ear. Your smooth lips quivering, I could only fixate, unable to let a word out, watching the words slowly roll out of your tongue. So in this poem, I'm not saying what the word is. I'm not indicating you. I'm leading you. I'm leading you to what the word can or could be, because I'm telling you how it makes me feel. It does, you know, it lands softly, it strips you all of my decency, all of these things like that. And you can imagine what word, like, I'm kind of like letting the readers play with their imagination in terms of like what could the word be, you know. And I never say what the word is, but that was kind of like my first, it's not like a great poem, it's one of my first poems where I was really experimenting with trying to let the readers work with their imagination. I think I wrote a recent one that I really like. It's one of my favorite ones right now at this stage of my life, and I wrote it I think 2 to 3 days ago. I'm gonna read it to you guys. Ace. 1 second, one look, depth between eyes. A long stare that almost feels like skin to skin contact. No words exchanged, no words needed, just silence and desire between two beings. One holds the color of thick, dark, deeply nourished soil, the other crystallized in pure multitudes of oceans. As they both drown in the desire of their stories, not even a word can cut through such feeling. I really like this poem because I feel like I'm really working with a couple words, and I'm really kind of putting myself to like describe what it is, but I'm not telling you what it is, you know. So that's a poem I really like that I kind of wrote most recently. There's also another one that I wrote. The last one that I wrote is a little bit more triggering. I don't know if I'll read it. I'll probably read it next time because it's not a poem that I've worked on. Like, it's kind of like a draft. I haven't gone back to it and worked on it, but it is a few of the poems that I definitely wrote while trying to experiment. I told myself that I'm not gonna completely shift and do only poems where I, you know, like just use this style of poetry where I'm just like kind of like letting the readers imagine, because I feel like I've told myself, and I've also spoken about it, where I feel like some poems do need that vicious style. Some poems do need that intensity, especially for me. Like, if I'm writing about a poem and I'm speaking about something triggering and traumatic, I feel like I do need these intense words. That poem needs to be hard to read, hard to go through. It needs to be hard to pass. I don't want to start desensitizing about topics that need to be hard to swallow and digest, especially when you talk about slut shaming and things like that. These are topics that need to be hard to digest. So I want my poems to reflect that. Like, you know, I want the readers to read it and feel some type of way, like, you know. But yeah, so that's it for poetry. This is my recent poetry, and these are just like the poems that I wrote in my style. So I do still keep that intensity style, but I'm also navigating that really soft. And so thank you for watching. If you guys write poetry, you guys have any comments or suggestions, leave in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in another lifetime.